Hello, I'm Jack, 31, an auto technician working on brakes, oil changes, and check engine lights. Nothing fancy. I've been at it since I was 20. After my divorce last year, I needed a fresh start, so I bought a small, quiet house in a suburban neighborhood a few hours from the city. It's not much, but it's mine. I wasn't seeking anything. No new friends, definitely no relationships, just peace, calm. A place to sleep where the walls didn't feel like they were watching me. The neighborhood's fine, mostly older folks, some young families. Nobody really waved, but nobody scowled either. That was enough for me. A few days after moving in, I saw her. Emily, my next-door neighbor. She was hauling a grocery cart up her driveway, 3 full bags in tow. Brown hair tied up, wearing a white t-shirt and pants. She looked tired, not lazy, but like someone carrying too much alone. I didn't want to seem weird, but watching her struggle felt wrong. So I walked over and said, "Need a hand?" She looked at me, a bit surprised but not unfriendly. "Sure, that'd be great," she replied. That was my first conversation with Emily. We carried the bags inside. I noticed only her car in the driveway. No others. Her house was clean, quiet, too quiet. She mentioned her son was at school, and she worked from home as a freelance editor. I didn't pry, just handed her the last bag, wiped my hands on my trousers and said, "If you ever need anything, I'm right next door." She tilted her head, gave a half smile, then said, "I could use a husband." No laugh, no grin, just dead serious, like the words slipped out before she could stop them. They hung there. I didn't know what to say, so I laughed awkwardly. I'll keep that in mind," I said, real smooth. She grinned faintly. "I'm just kidding." But her eyes didn't fully agree. Back at my place, I shut the door, and the moment hit me. I stood in my kitchen thinking, it was a joke, right? I knew nothing about her, not even her last name. But her words, that look, kept replaying. It wasn't a flirty line tossed at a stranger. It was like she'd admitted something she wished she hadn't said aloud. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw hers, that gaze. I hadn't planned to get involved with anyone, especially not a neighbor. That's the kind of thing that gets messy. But I couldn't shake that moment. Some call it curiosity, some fate. I felt something had started, even if I didn't know what. The next day, I tried to stay cool, kept to myself, worked in my garage, tightening bolts that didn't need it. But every time I stepped outside, I glanced at her house, half expecting her to be there, saying something else to knock the wind out of me. She wasn't. Not that day. The day after, though, I saw her watering her front yard. Same white t-shirt, tucked into vintage denim shorts, sunglasses on. She waved. I waved back. That was it. Slowly, we started exchanging brief hellos, a few words over the fence, weather, how the neighborhood was sometimes too quiet. Her dry humor took a second to catch, the kind that makes you rethink after she's already gone. A few days later, she caught me working on my '92 Chevy Silverado, more personality than most people. She strolled over, hands in her hoodie pockets. "You're always messing with that thing," she said. "Ever fix it, or is this just therapy?" I smiled. "Bit of both." She leaned on the fence. "Evening. Got a leaky kitchen faucet, just saying." "I could take a look?" I said simply. "Be my guest," she replied, turning toward her house. "But if it explodes, I'll blame you." That afternoon I was under her sink, replacing a cheap ancient connector that hadn't been touched in years. She stood nearby, arms crossed, a slight grin on her face. "Most guys would have charged me for this," she said. I wiped my hands, shrugged. Most guys aren't trying to impress their neighbor. A spark flashed in her eyes, maybe amusement, maybe more. But she just said, Keep this up. You'll have a permanent fan club. As I packed my tools, she asked casually, Want some pie? Made too much yesterday. I hesitated. She noticed. It's not poison, she teased. I'm more worried about not stopping at one piece, I said. She smiled. Then don't. That evening, we sat on her back porch, eating homemade apple pie, drinking coffee from mismatched mugs. Her son, Lucas, stepped out briefly, a skinny, quiet kid with a serious face. This is Jack, Emily said. He's the one who got our faucet to stop screaming. Lucas nodded once, then went inside with his tablet. He doesn't say much, she said softly. Not since. I nodded. Takes time. I didn't ask. It wasn't my place. The silence said enough. These small moments continued for weeks. She'd leave leftovers on my porch. If I was mowing my lawn, I'd offer to do hers too. We started talking over the fence like it was normal, like that's just what neighbors did. But something deeper was growing. One evening, I was on my front porch, sipping a beer, when her screen door creaked. She sat on her steps, the fence barely 10 yards between us. No words at first, just cicadas and distant cars. Then, out of nowhere, she said, You don't seem like most men I've met. I looked over. Good or bad thing? She smirked, thinking. She pulled her legs to her chest, quieter now. Most men talk too much, especially when they've got nothing to say. We sat in silence after that. Not awkward, but comfortable. Something else. Days later, I saw her son again sitting on their porch with a remote control car that wouldn't start. Mind if I take a look? I asked. He handed it over silently. It took 5 minutes. New batteries, reseated motor connector. Thank you, he mumbled, not meeting my eyes. Emily stood in the doorway, watching. When I looked up, she said, Thank you. I just nodded. That night, alone in my garage, I tried to make sense of it. I wasn't doing anything special, not really. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was drifting. These small acts, pie, our cars, quiet glances over a fence, felt solid. I wasn't falling in love, not yet. But I was slipping into something, and a buried, broken part of me was waking up. Thanksgiving came faster than I expected. Stores were packed, neighbors I'd never seen were out, stringing lights, setting up plastic pumpkins, waving like we'd been friends forever. Emily and I hadn't talked much that week, not in a bad way, just life getting busy. I figured she had holiday plans, maybe family visiting. I didn't ask. At 7 a.m., I saw her car pull out, Lucas in the passenger seat. She didn't wave, didn't look my way, just drove off. I spent the day doing nothing. No trip to my parents, who I hadn't talked to much since the divorce. I heated a frozen dinner, watched a football game I didn't care about, tried not to notice how empty my house felt. By 8 p.m., her car was back, but her porch light was off, curtains drawn, no sign of Lucas, no movement. Something felt wrong. The next day, I saw her dragging the trash can to the curb. Hoodie, hair up, face pale, no makeup, no pretense. I walked over slowly. You okay? I asked. She looked up, eyes red and puffy. I'm fine, she said, but her voice cracked on the second word. I didn't push, just stood there, watching her breathe like each breath took effort. Want some coffee? She asked after a pause. Sure, I said. We sat at her kitchen table, too clean, like it had been wiped down a dozen times out of restlessness. Lucas was at a friend's for the weekend, she said. I don't usually talk about this, she began, gripping her mug. Yesterday was the anniversary. I knew what she meant before she said it. My husband died 3 years ago on Thanksgiving. I stayed silent, nodded. She continued. It was sudden, heart attack. He was 30. No warning, no build-up. 1 minute we're folding laundry, then he's on the floor. She stared at her coffee, avoiding my eyes. I go to the cemetery every year, take Lucas. We light candles. Most of the time I sit in my car, just quiet. I didn't offer pity or cliches, just let the silence hold her words. Then she said, I didn't think I could feel anything for anyone again. Not like that. Not real. She looked up, her face calm but eyes raw. Now I'm scared because I think I'm starting to. I swallowed hard. I could have joked, played it light, but I didn't. I reached across the table, placed my hand over hers. No pressure, no movement, just there. She let it rest. I wasn't trying to fall for anyone, she whispered. Neither was I said. We sat for an hour, barely talking, just the fridge's hum and the floorboards creak. It was the most intimate night I'd had in years, yet we only touched hands. No kisses, no cinematic swell, just shared grief, mutual understanding. When I got home, I turned off all the lights, sat on my couch in the dark, staring at the ceiling. Something had shifted. We hadn't talked about being together, made no promises, no declarations of love, no lines crossed. But Emily wasn't just someone I liked anymore. She was someone I needed to protect, not from harm, but from the quiet, the weight she carried alone every day. Maybe she felt the same about me. The week after Thanksgiving was cold, the kind that seeps into your bones, makes floorboards creak louder. I buried myself in work at the garage, not because I had to, but to avoid thinking about Emily, her words, how my chest felt like it was expanding and shrinking at once. We didn't talk much that week. She texted Monday. Thanks for listening, that's all I needed. I replied, any time. That was it. Friday morning, I got a surprise call from Ryan, an old friend who'd moved to Denver. His shop was expanding. They needed a lead mechanic. Full salary, benefits, clean bays, real tools, steady hours, everything my job lacked. Can't promise the sun and moon, he said, but it's a step up. You've earned one. I told him I'd think about it. I did for 2 days straight. I had no deep roots here, no family nearby, no kids, just a mortgage. And Emily. Sunday evening, I was out back splitting wood when I heard her. You thinking about moving? She asked. I turned. She stood there, arms crossed, same big hoodie loose around her. Where'd you hear that? Joanne, 2 doors down. Her son's friends with someone at your garage. I nodded slowly. Just a call. Nothing set. She stepped closer. But you're considering it. I didn't answer right away. Just looked at my calloused, dirty hands. Hands that could fix almost anything. Except this. Better pay, I said. Better hours. Good chance to build something. She was quiet, then let out a sharp breath through her nose. I see. I leaned on the axe handle. Emily, it's not... I joked about needing a husband, she cut in, voice flat. But I didn't joke about needing you. It hit like a punch. No tears, no trembling, just raw, naked honesty. I stepped closer, stood in front of her. You're the first person who's made this place feel like home, she said, quieter. And I'm scared you'll leave before I figure out what this is. Without hesitation, I said, I'm not going anywhere. No big speech, no dramatic hug in the rain, just those words and her face when she knew I meant them. That night, she came to my place. No knock. She opened the back screen door, walked in like she belonged. Sweatshirt, leggings, hair back, no makeup. Just her. Real. She sat on the edge of my couch, hands in her lap, like she wasn't sure where to start. I didn't push. She looked at me. We didn't kiss the night I told you about Jason. I shook my head. Didn't feel right. Tonight? She asked. I stepped closer slowly, giving her time to change her mind, laugh it off like one of her jokes. She didn't. Our first kiss wasn't wild or passionate, not the stuff of songs. It was soft, hesitant, like two people learning a new language, scared to mispronounce a word. We stayed there, her head on my shoulder, my arm around her, TV on, but unwatched. She didn't stay the night. It wasn't about lust, but trust. Trust takes time. Next morning I called Ryan, told him I wasn't taking the job. "You sure?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "Found something more important here." "You found a woman, right?" I laughed. "Something like that." That morning Emily brought breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast, fresh orange juice in a thermos. Lucas trailed her, carrying a small container of strawberries. "You staying?" he asked softly. "Yeah, bud, I'm staying." He handed me the strawberries, nodded like the deal was sealed. We didn't label anything after that, no big talks about us. But we knew something had changed, and this time it felt permanent. A year later, it's funny how fast that sounds when you say it, but living it day by day, breath by breath, it felt gradual, like water shaping stone. By spring, Emily and I had a routine. I'd wait before sunrise, drink coffee on my back steps, watch the sun creep over rooftops. Some mornings, she'd join me, robe tight, hair tangled, half awake, sitting in silence until Lucas woke. Other times, she'd wave from her kitchen window, half smiling as she made breakfast. She didn't move in at first, we both agreed. No rush, no pressure. But things shifted slowly. Her toothbrush in my bathroom, her favorite tea in my cabinet, a basket of Lucas's socks by my laundry. Then, one Saturday morning in July, she said, like it was nothing, "Mind if we stay here tonight, all of us?" That was the first night they slept under my roof. They never left. Lucas and I found our own rhythm. No forcing it. I wasn't trying to replace anyone. When Emily worked late editing, I started picking him up from school, took him to the garage some Saturdays to hang out. We built a tool set. Nothing fancy, just wood, screws, paint. He wrote his name on it in crooked black letters, said it was official. One night in September, he asked if he could still call me Jack, but maybe sometimes call me Dad, too. I couldn't speak for a second, then said, "I'd be honored." Emily cried quietly in the kitchen, hiding behind a dish towel, fooling no one. By the holidays, the three of us had found a peace I never expected. No drama, no big revelations, just deep, rare calm that comes when you stop trying to be someone else and let yourself be loved. On the anniversary of our first meeting, the day she said that silly, beautiful line, we sat on the front porch. Emily had her feet on the railing, holding a mug. Lucas was inside, building a Lego monster to show us later. The air was cold, quiet, one of those nights that needs nothing. She leaned her head on my shoulder, said softly, "Still think it was a joke?" I looked at her, same sharp gaze, but softer now, time smoothing the rough edges, leaving warmth. "Not for 1 second, I said. She smiled, looked into her mug. I felt like a joke when I said it, but part of me meant it. I nodded. "I know." So I did. Later that year, we talked about marriage. Not a big wedding, nothing lavish, just the three of us, maybe my sister or her brother, in the park where Lucas learned to ride his bike. We weren't rushing. We'd already built the hard parts. Trust, honesty, patience. The rest was just decoration. People talk about love like it's fireworks, a huge event with music, chaos, and emotion tearing through your chest. But I've learned it's quieter. A hand on your back when you're tired, a note on the counter saying, "Lunch is in the refrigerator." A kid who calls you dad when he doesn't have to. A neighbor who tossed out a joke and looked you in the eyes like she meant every word. That line she threw out like it was nothing. It became the start of my whole life. I wouldn't change a thing.